Hey guys, it is Arickamisha. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. And today's video is one of those videos. Looking down at my notes, have you ever experienced church hurt? Have you ever experienced it? I have. I've kind of talked about it a little bit here on my platform, but today God wanted me to dedicate this video to talk about it. And I know if God has me telling my business, sharing my business, praying that it helps you with your business, I know it's going to help someone. Because one thing I have learned, God does not have me on this platform sharing my business, embarrassing myself, telling my business, all of that for the glory of God, for the honor of God. I know He don't have me doing this for nothing, because I've had so many people come to me and say, hey, what you said helped me. Hey, what you said blessed me. Oh, I know God was talking through you, because that's what God was talking to me about. Have you ever experienced church hurt? I have. Just a little backstory. I was 20 years old in the church, living for God. But yet at 20 years old, I was doing things out of the will of God. And at 20 years old, I got pregnant. I wasn't married. And you already know how the church folks is. They do not play that. Back in my day, they did not play that. Pastors sat you down for that. And I was sat down. Because I was 20 years old. Not because I was 20 years old, but I was pregnant and I wasn't married. And I was doing things out of the will of God because, I was a child of God. I said I was living for Christ. I'm telling y'all, let me tell you, I was singing in the choir. I was teaching Sunday school, teaching Bible study, preaching, minister, going to different churches, speaking. Yeah, that's what I was doing. And I was doing stuff out of the will of God because obviously I'm pregnant and I wasn't married. And now we're just saying, in the life that I say that I was living, if I said that I was living for God and, living the life that God has called me to live, I was doing stuff out of the will of God. And so, I went to my pastor and I told him I was pregnant, like my mom told me that I should, and I did. And, he sat me down. It was no more in the choir, no more, ministering, going to other churches, speaking in the church, no more teaching Bible study, no more teaching Sunday school. Yeah, my pastor sat me down. And it hurt. It hurt really bad. I felt ashamed. I felt embarrassed. I felt like the church had turned their back on me. And I felt like, him being a man of God, my pastor, I felt like God didn't love me no more. And I felt like I was just being punished over and over again. I was already dealing with the fact that I had did something out of the will of God. So I was already dealing with God punishing me and feeling guilty, and feeling ashamed. I was already dealing with all that, And to be sat down in a church, it really hurt. And I had to deal with the church people acting funny, talking funny to me, thinking they could say whatever they want. But no. Some of them, I let them get away with it, being honest. I did let some people get away with it because, like we had built a friendship. So I was like, okay, this is my friend. Maybe, she just telling me this, because she loved me, she's telling me this, but there's a way you tell somebody, you don't be slick with it. But anyway, ain't gonna get into all of that. But yes, so I had to deal with that, being sat down in front of the whole, church, and then when other churches came in to visit, they was like, oh, why you not up with the choir? And you know what I mean? It was a lot. It was a lot. And dealing with, I'm not going to say all church people acting funny. I'm not going to say that. Not all church people were acting funny with me. Not all of the church shunned me. I'm not going to say that. There was some that showed me love and support in spite of. There was some that, there was this one lady in the church. She did throw me a baby shower. How about that? So I'm not sitting here bashing everybody, not saying everybody was mean to me and the whole church was mean to me. I'm not saying that. But I'm just talking about the church hurt that I experienced. The ones that were mean, the ones that were acting funny, the ones that felt like they could say anything they want to me. Oh, what you doing pregnant? You ain't even married. Oh, how you pregnant and you ain't married and how you got pregnant and you wrong for that and you teaching my child in Sunday school and all of that. I dealt with all that. And I'm telling you, it really hurt me. It truly, really hurt me. It really, really, really hurt me to my soul, to my core. It hurt me. I was crying a lot. I didn't want to go to church no more. I was like going into this depression, but I didn't want to go into it. And then I didn't want to go to church no more, but my mom made me go, you know what I mean? Because at this time, I had graduated from high school. I had started college, you know what I mean? I was 20 years old and I was living at home, because back then it made more sense, It's not like nowadays, kids graduate and they move out on their own. They're in college and they live in their own place, Back then things were different, And, I was, in college, I had, went to a local college, decided to go local instead of, move to another state and go to college. I stayed home, and I went to a local college in the beginning. But yes, it was a lot dealing with church hurt. I would cry a lot, and I was mad at all the church people, even the ones that were nice to me. I'm being honest. Even some of the ones that were nice to me, I was mean to them because I was just mad at everybody. And I was like, everybody hurt me and everybody turned their back on me, and it was a mess. It was a mess, y'all. It was a mess. I'm telling you, I experienced church hurt to the core. And it was hard. It was very hard. It was very embarrassing, and people looking at me funny. And then as my belly grew and I got bigger and bigger, it just got worse. It just got worse because like when we went and visited another church, of course I still went, and people would look at me and they'd be like, "Oh, where your husband? Where your husband at?" Stuff like that, being slick, funny. But I'm telling you, y'all, it was a lot, and it wasn't nobody but God that got me through that. Nobody but God that got me through that. God helped me heal, and once I healed and I had my daughter, even after I had my daughter, some people were still acting funny, like you still ain't married. I'm telling you, even after I had my daughter, people were still acting funny with me. But yeah. And the other day I went to the store. I do want to put this in there. The other day I went to the store and I ran into, one of the ladies that I experienced church hurt from, that really gave me a hard time. I ran into her at the store the other day, and I saw her before she saw me. Now, mind you, I hadn't seen her in years. And before, usually if I saw her somewhere, I'd try to avoid her because I would just think about how she hurt my feelings, how she hurt me back then. But this particular day I saw her, this is a couple weeks ago. And this particular day I saw her, this is how I know God had healed me from it, and God had delivered me from it, and I was no longer angry anymore. Because even after I had my daughter, let me tell you guys, even after I had my daughter, I stayed at the church. I didn't go to another church or anything. And then as time went on, everybody started acting back to their normal selves, But I do want to say that. But a couple weeks ago, I ran into her. And I saw her before she saw me. And I looked and I saw her. And I said, wow, I haven't seen her in years. And then I thought about, how she hurt me, how she hurt my feelings, and the stuff that she said to me, because, she was married, stuff like that. And I saw her and, she was coming out the store and I was going in the store. And I was like, at first I was like, I'm just going to sit in my car. And I was just watching her. And then I was like, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're over it. You've moved on. God has healed you from that. Don't let the enemy try to make you live in that moment again and make you feel that way and bring those feelings back up. I said, devil, you was a lie. Got out my car. And I was like, hey, how you doing? And she's like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in years. And she was just asking me about my daughters, asking me how we were doing, and no, she really was, I can tell her spirit was really genuine. She was just, she hadn't seen me in years, and she just asked me how I was doing, how my daughter, she had, heard I had other kids, and she was asking me how I was doing, how my other kids were doing, and just a really nice, pleasant conversation. It was really nice, to talk to her. I didn't really, tell all my business, but I told y'all know, God got me telling my business over here. So, I kind of shared some things with her. We just ministered to each other. It was great. It was great, y'all. It was great. But I have experienced church hurt. I have experienced it. But let me tell you something. Don't allow that church hurt to cause you to be angry and bitter, because that's what the enemy wants. Ask God to help you like I did. Ask God to help you, heal you from that church hurt. Ask God to help you, because the enemy wants to use that church hurt against you. That's what he wants to do. He wants to use that hurt. Wants you to be bitter at people. Wants you to be angry at people. Wants you to hold unforgiveness in your heart. I know. I'm telling you from my experience. I did all that. I did all of that. Unforgiving. Oh, I'm leaving the church. Oh, I did all that. I did all that. But God had to help me. God had to come in and heal me. And I remember one day when it was time to go to church, and I cried, and I was like, I don't want to go to church. And I'm like, why you want to go to church? You're going to church. You know how that go. And I was living in her house under her, y'all know how that go. So I was like, no, everybody mean to me at church. People be talking to me funny. You know what I'm saying? And my mom was like, you know what? Mama said, you made your bed, you got to lay in it. My mama said, you got to go to church. Lift your head up. Lift your head up. Don't have your head down. Mama said, you just got to live with what you did. Live with what you did. You know what I'm saying? And my mom was telling the truth. She kept it real. She kept it real. Gotta live with what I did. I was wrong. I had to live in it. I made my bed hard. I had to lay in it. She said, but don't let that cause you to not go to church and not keep your relationship with God. My mama was right. She said, don't let that do that to you. She said, own it. You owned it. You told everybody. You told the pastor. You owned it. Mama said, now go to church and keep living your life. She said, you went to God. You asked God to forgive you, didn't you? And I said, yes. She said, okay, let's go. And she was right. And I went on. So ask God to help you with that church hurt. Don't let the enemy use that church hurt against you. Don't let him even use that against you. So it's what God wanted me to come and share. And I pray it helps somebody, y'all. God bless. Bye.